Have you ever wondered why you keep meeting the same type of person over and over again, just wearing a different face? You know what I'm talking about. Those people who seem amazing at first, who really get you, but then turn out to be energy vampires, narcissists, or just completely wrong for you. Well, if you're an INFJ, this isn't just bad luck. There's actually a psychological reason behind this pattern, and today we're going to dig deep into why INFJs seem to attract the wrong people every single time, and more importantly, what you can do about it. Stick around because what I'm about to share might actually change your entire approach to relationships and help you finally break this exhausting cycle. The empath magnet effect. Let's talk about the first major reason INFJs attract the wrong people. They're walking, talking empath magnets. INFJs don't just understand emotions intellectually. They actually feel them. When you're hurting, they're hurting. When you're excited, they feel that energy too. This deep empathy is like a beacon in the night for people who are broken, damaged, or looking for someone to fix them. Now, there's nothing wrong with being empathetic. In fact, it's one of the most beautiful human qualities. But here's where it gets tricky for INFJs. They often can't tell the difference between someone who's genuinely going through a tough time and needs temporary support versus someone who's a perpetual victim looking for a permanent caretaker. Emotional vampires, and yes, they're real, can sense an INFJ from a mile away. These are the people who always have a crisis, always need saving, and somehow never seem to get better despite all the help they receive. They latch onto INFJs because they know they've found someone who won't easily give up on them. The INFJ thinks they're helping someone heal and grow. The emotional vampire thinks they've found an unlimited source of emotional supply. See the problem? The "I can fix them" syndrome. Here's a tough truth that most INFJs don't want to hear. They have a savior complex. Before you click away feeling attacked, hear me out. This isn't about being judgmental. It's about understanding a pattern that keeps INFJs stuck in unhealthy relationships. INFJs have this incredible ability to see potential in people. They don't just see who you are right now, they see who you could become. They see the diamond underneath all that rough exterior. They see the good person hiding beneath the addiction, the trauma, or the bad behavior. This vision is actually a gift. It's what makes INFJs great counselors, teachers, and friends. But it becomes a curse when they start believing that their love, understanding, and support can fundamentally change someone who doesn't want to change. Here's what happens. An INFJ meets someone who's clearly got issues. Maybe it's someone with an addiction problem, commitment issues, or unresolved trauma. Instead of seeing these as red flags, the INFJ sees them as challenges to overcome. They think, everyone else gave up on this person, but I won't. I see the real them underneath all this pain. Months or even years later, the INFJ is exhausted, depleted, and wondering why nothing changed despite all their effort. That's because you can't fix people who don't want to fix themselves. You just can't. And the wrong people know that INFJs will try anyway. The deep connection trap. INFJs crave deep, meaningful connections. They're not interested in small talk or surface-level relationships. They want to know your fears, your dreams, your childhood memories, and what keeps you up at night. This intense desire for depth makes them vulnerable to a specific type of wrong person, the one who can fake depth. Narcissists, manipulators, and emotionally unavailable people have learned that mirroring depth is an easy way to hook someone. They'll share just enough vulnerability to make you feel like you've found a kindred spirit. They'll ask the right questions, say the right things, and create this illusion of a soul-deep connection. INFJs fall for this because genuine deep connections are so rare for them. When they think they've found someone who operates on their wavelength, they hold on tight. They ignore the inconsistencies, excuse the bad behavior, and convince themselves that the connection they felt at the beginning was real. But here's the thing. Real depth reveals itself through consistent action over time, not just through intense conversations in the beginning. The wrong people know how to create intense beginnings. They're not so good at the consistent middle and the committed long term. The boundary problem nobody talks about. Let's get real for a second. INFJs struggle with boundaries, and this is a huge reason they attract the wrong people. I know. You might be thinking, but I'm actually pretty good at setting boundaries. And maybe you are with strangers, with acquaintances, with people you don't care about. But what about with people you love? What about with people you've decided are worth saving? That's where the boundary wall comes crumbling down. INFJs have this internal conflict. On one hand, they value their alone time, their peace, and their emotional energy. On the other hand, they feel guilty saying no to people who need them. They worry that setting a firm boundary makes them cold, uncaring, or selfish. So what happens? They say yes when they mean no. They give more than they have to give. They accept behavior they shouldn't accept. They make excuses for people who don't deserve excuses. The wrong people aren't stupid. They test boundaries early and often. When they discover that an INFJ's boundaries are more like suggestions than rules, they move right in and make themselves comfortable. Before the INFJ knows it, they're completely overwhelmed, but they feel trapped because they've already established a pattern of limitless giving. The introvert who seems like an extrovert. Here's something that confuses a lot of people about INFJs. They can be surprisingly social and charismatic when they want to be. This creates a weird dynamic where people think the INFJ is more available than they actually are. The wrong people see this social INFJ, assume they found someone who can meet all their emotional and social needs, and then get upset when the INFJ retreats to recharge. INFJs need a lot of alone time to process their thoughts and emotions. But because they can fake extroversion so well, the wrong people don't see this coming. They feel rejected, abandoned, or confused when the INFJ suddenly needs space. This mismatch attracts people who need constant attention and validation. These are the people who text you 20 times a day, who get upset if you don't respond immediately, who take your need for alone time as a personal rejection. For an INFJ, this is exhausting. They're trying to manage someone else's emotions while also trying to protect their own energy. Eventually, they burn out completely, but not before attracting even more people who need constant emotional maintenance. The authenticity paradox. INFJs value authenticity above almost everything else. They pride themselves on being genuine, real, and true to their values. They can smell fake people from a distance, right? Well, yes and no. Here's the paradox. Because INFJs are so authentic themselves, they assume others are too. They think that everyone values honesty and genuineness as much as they do. This makes them surprisingly gullible when it comes to people who can convincingly fake authenticity. The wrong people know that INFJs respond to vulnerability and realness. So they perform it. They'll share a traumatic story from their past. They'll cry at just the right moment. They'll say things like, "I've never told anyone this before," or, "You're the only one who really understands me." The INFJ's authentic nature makes them believe these performances are real. They think, "This person is being so open and vulnerable with me. I should honor that by being loyal and supportive." What they don't realize is that they're watching a well-rehearsed show designed specifically to hook them. By the time the INFJ realizes they've been played, they've already invested so much time, energy, and emotion into the relationship that walking away feels impossible. The idealism that blinds them. INFJs are idealists at heart. They believe in the good in people. They believe that love can conquer all, that understanding can heal wounds, and that everyone deserves a second chance. This idealism is beautiful, but it's also dangerous. The wrong people exploit this idealism relentlessly. They know that INFJs will always give them one more chance, always try to see things from their perspective, always believe that things can get better. An INFJ will stay in a relationship that's clearly toxic because they're in love with the potential, not the reality. They're dating the future version of the person, the one who's going to get therapy, work on themselves, and finally become the partner they could be. Meanwhile, the wrong person is quite comfortable staying exactly as they are. Why would they change? They're getting all their needs met while putting in minimal effort. This idealism also makes INFJs vulnerable to people who love bomb them in the beginning. The wrong person will shower them with attention, affection, and promises of a perfect future together. The INFJ thinks, finally, someone who wants the same deep, committed relationship that I want. But love bombing isn't love. It's a manipulation tactic. Once the wrong person has secured the INFJ's commitment, The idealistic future they promised slowly disappears, replaced by the disappointing reality of who they actually are. The advice giver who can't take their own advice. Here's an ironic truth about INFJs. They give amazing advice to everyone else but completely ignore that same advice when it comes to their own lives. Ask an INFJ what their friend should do about a toxic relationship, and they'll give you a clear, logical breakdown of why they need to leave. They'll see all the red flags. They'll recognize the manipulation tactics. They'll give step-by-step advice on how to set boundaries and walk away. But when it comes to their own situation with the wrong person, suddenly it's different. It's more complicated. The other person doesn't understand the full context. This situation is unique. Spoiler alert, it's not that unique. The wrong people benefit enormously from this blind spot. They know the INFJ can see everyone else's problems clearly but can't see their own. So they isolate the INFJ from friends and family who might point out the obvious issues. They create an us versus them mentality where only the two of them truly understand their special connection. Before long, the INFJ who once gave such wise advice to others is completely lost in their own situation, unable to apply even a fraction of that wisdom to themselves. The martyr complex in disguise. Let's talk about something uncomfortable. Many INFJs have a martyr complex that they're not even aware of. They don't see themselves as martyrs. They see themselves as caring, selfless, and dedicated. But if we're being honest, there's often a part of the INFJ that gets something out of being the one who suffers for others. It makes them feel needed. It gives them purpose. It confirms their identity as the helper, the healer, the one person who didn't give up. There's a certain pride in being able to say, I stuck it out when no one else would. The wrong people can sense this. They know that the INFJ needs to be needed. So they present themselves as people who desperately need the INFJ's unique understanding, patience, and support. They make the INFJ feel special and important. This creates a sick cycle where the INFJ is actually getting their emotional needs met through an unhealthy relationship. They're getting validation, purpose, and identity through being the long-suffering partner or friend of someone who takes and takes without giving back. Breaking this cycle requires the INFJ to face an uncomfortable truth. They might be choosing the wrong people because being with the right person, someone healthy, stable, and reciprocal, wouldn't fulfill their unconscious need to be the savior. The intuition that gets overruled. INFJs have incredibly strong intuition. They call it their gut feeling, and it's almost always right. They'll meet someone and immediately get a sense that something's off, that this person isn't safe, or that this relationship is going to be problematic. So why do they ignore it? Because INFJs are also highly rational. They don't want to judge people unfairly. They tell themselves that their intuition might be wrong this time, that they're being too harsh, or that everyone deserves a fair chance. They override their intuition with logic. Just because they remind me of my ex doesn't mean they'll act the same way. Maybe I'm being paranoid. I should give them the benefit of the doubt. The wrong people absolutely love when an INFJ ignores their intuition. That gut feeling was the INFJ's early warning system, and the wrong person just watched them turn it off voluntarily. Months later, when everything the INFJ's intuition warned them about comes true, they kick themselves for not listening. But the damage is already done, and they're in deep with someone who's all wrong for them. The loneliness factor. Let's be brutally honest. INFJs are often lonely, and lonely people make poor choices when it comes to relationships. Because INFJs are so rare and because they need such specific types of connections, they go long periods without meeting people who really get them. This creates a deep loneliness that's hard for others to understand. When someone comes along who seems to understand them, who seems interested in who they really are, the INFJ holds on tight. Even if there are red flags. Even if their intuition is screaming warnings. Even if their friends are expressing concerns. The INFJ thinks, this might be my only chance to have the connection I've been craving. I can't let this go. They'd rather have a flawed connection than no connection at all. The wrong people prey on this loneliness. They position themselves as the answer to the INFJ's isolation. They say things like, we're so alike, or, I've never met anyone who understands me like you do. They create a sense of urgency and specialness that makes the INFJ afraid to walk away. This fear of being alone again keeps INFJs trapped in situations with people who are fundamentally wrong for them, all because the alternative, being lonely, feels worse. The all-or-nothing approach to relationships. INFJs don't do casual. They don't do surface level. They don't do halfway. When they're in, they're all in. This intensity is part of what makes INFJs such incredible friends and partners. When they commit to you, they really commit. But it's also what makes them vulnerable to the wrong people. The wrong people love this all-or-nothing approach because it means once they hook an INFJ, they've got them completely. The INFJ isn't going to casually date around, keep their options open, or maintain emotional distance. Nope. They're going to dive in headfirst and give everything they've got. This means the INFJ overlooks red flags early on because they've already decided this is their person. They've already emotionally committed before they really know who they're committing to. A healthier approach would be to take things slowly, maintain some boundaries, and really observe someone's character over time before going all in. But that's not how INFJs operate. They feel deeply and quickly, and they trust those feelings. The wrong people take advantage of this by matching the INFJ's intensity in the beginning. They mirror that all-in energy, making the INFJ believe they've found someone who loves as deeply as they do. By the time the wrong person shows their true colors, the INFJ is already emotionally invested and finds it nearly impossible to walk away. The conflict avoidance issue. Here's another uncomfortable truth. INFJs hate conflict, and this makes them easy targets for the wrong people. Even though INFJs have strong values and opinions, they'll often stay quiet rather than start an argument. They'll tolerate behavior they shouldn't tolerate because addressing it would mean confrontation, and confrontation feels awful to them. The wrong people test this early. They'll push boundaries just a little bit. If the INFJ doesn't speak up, they push a little more. And a little more. Before long, the wrong person is behaving badly on a regular basis, and the INFJ has never said a word about it because they're avoiding conflict. This creates a dynamic where the wrong person feels free to act however they want, knowing the INFJ probably won't call them out. Even if the INFJ is upset, even if they're hurt, even if they're considering leaving, they're probably not going to say anything until they've reached their absolute breaking point. By that time, the pattern is so established that the wrong person is genuinely shocked when the INFJ finally explodes or disappears. They had no idea anything was wrong because the INFJ never said anything. The irony is that INFJs avoid small conflicts because they're uncomfortable, but this avoidance leads to massive conflicts down the road that are way more painful than the small confrontations would have been. Breaking the pattern, what INFJs need to understand. So here's what we've established. INFJs attract the wrong people because they're empathetic, idealistic, boundary-challenged, conflict-avoidant people with savior complexes who ignore their intuition and tolerate poor treatment because they're lonely and believe they can fix broken people. That's a lot, right? But here's the good news. Recognizing the pattern is the first step to breaking it. If you're an INFJ, you need to understand that not everyone deserves your empathy, time, and energy. Some people will take everything you give and still want more. They're black holes of need, and you can't fill them no matter how hard you try. You also need to get real about the difference between helping someone and enabling them. True help empowers people to help themselves. Enabling keeps them dependent on you. If someone has been in your life for a long time and isn't getting better despite all your support, you're probably enabling, not helping. Your intuition is your superpower, but only if you actually listen to it. That gut feeling that something's off? It's trying to protect you. Stop overruling it with logic, rationalization, or benefit of the doubt thinking. Your intuition has access to information your conscious mind hasn't processed yet. Trust it. Boundaries aren't mean or selfish, they're necessary. You can't be good to anyone if you're completely depleted. Setting boundaries actually makes you a better friend, partner, and person because you're operating from a place of healthy energy rather than resentful exhaustion. And please understand that being alone is better than being with the wrong person. Loneliness is temporary and manageable. The damage from a toxic relationship can last for years. Don't settle for someone who's wrong for you just because you're tired of waiting for someone who's right. The right people versus the wrong people. Let me tell you what the right people look like, so you can start recognizing the difference. The right people don't need you to fix them. They're doing their own work on themselves, and they want a partner, not a parent or a therapist. They take responsibility for their own emotions, issues, and growth. The right people respect your boundaries. When you say you need alone time, they don't take it personally or make you feel guilty. They understand that you're an introvert who needs to recharge, and they give you that space without drama. The right people give as much as they take. The relationship feels balanced. You're not constantly exhausted from giving while receiving nothing in return. There's genuine reciprocity. The right people are consistent. They don't love bomb you in the beginning and then disappear. They don't say one thing and do another. Their words match their actions over time. The right people make you feel energized, not drained. Yes, all relationships take work and energy, but the right person should make you feel more alive, not more exhausted. The right people celebrate your sensitivity and empathy rather than exploiting it. They see your gifts as beautiful qualities to be appreciated, not resources to be consumed. If you're reading this and thinking, wow, I've never actually been with someone like that, then that's the problem. You keep choosing the wrong people because you don't know what the right people look and feel like. The work you need to do. Breaking this pattern isn't just about getting better at spotting red flags. It's about doing the internal work to understand why you keep ignoring those red flags in the first place. You might need to work with a therapist to unpack your savior complex. Where does it come from? What need is it filling for you? How can you get those needs met in healthier ways? You might need to examine your relationship with loneliness. Why does being alone feel so threatening? What stories are you telling yourself about what it means to be alone? How can you create a life that feels full and meaningful even without a romantic partner? You might need to practice setting boundaries in low-stakes situations before you can set them in relationships. Start saying no to things you don't want to do. Start speaking up when something bothers you. Start protecting your time and energy with people who matter less, so you have the skill when it comes to people who matter more. You might need to work on really listening to and trusting your intuition. Start small. Notice when your gut feeling is telling you something, and instead of overruling it, pay attention to it. See what happens when you actually listen to that inner voice. And you absolutely need to get honest about your patterns. Look at your past relationships, romantic and platonic, and identify the common threads. What type of person do you keep choosing? What red flags do you keep ignoring? What excuses do you keep making? Write it down. Make it concrete. You can't change a pattern you won't acknowledge. Conclusion. So why do INFJs attract the wrong people every single time? Because they're empathetic, deeply feeling people with poor boundaries and strong savior complexes who override their intuition in favor of giving everyone the benefit of the doubt. Because they're lonely and idealistic, choosing to see potential rather than reality. Because they believe love and understanding can fix anything, even people who don't want to be fixed. But here's what I really want you to hear. This pattern isn't inevitable. You're not doomed to repeat this cycle forever. Yes, your personality traits make you vulnerable to certain types of people, but awareness is power. Once you understand why you keep making these choices, you can start making different ones. The right people are out there. People who will appreciate your depth without exploiting it. People who will value your empathy without draining it. People who will respect your boundaries and meet you halfway. People who are doing their own work and want a genuine, balanced, healthy relationship. But you'll never find those people if you keep settling for the wrong ones. And you'll keep settling for the wrong ones until you do the work to understand why you're choosing them in the first place. It's not easy work. It's uncomfortable to face your own patterns and take responsibility for the role you play in your relationship struggles. But it's necessary, because you deserve better than what you've been accepting. You deserve relationships that fill you up instead of draining you dry. You deserve people who are as committed to your well-being as you are to theirs. Stop waiting to be found by someone worthy. Start becoming someone who refuses to accept anything less than what you deserve. That's how you break the pattern. That's how you stop attracting the wrong people and start building the meaningful, reciprocal connections you've always wanted. Thanks for watching. If this resonated with you, leave a comment below sharing your experience. And remember, recognizing the pattern is the first step to breaking it. You've got this.